This video is sponsored by Fan Dominion. Celebrate your fandom with incredible merch from your favorite movies, shows, and games. Whether you're a fan of Spider-Man, Star Wars, or Demon Slayer, they've got you covered. With free worldwide shipping and discounts of up to 60% off. Click the link in the description and use my code Sadat for 10% off your next order. Hello, salutations. What it do is Stop the Gamer off by the Do-Rag Gang. You know the vibes, like, subscribe, let's get it. And today we got a shocking video. I'm not exaggerating. So I was just wrapping up a video for my Hawkeye build. Look out for that soon. And I got a ping in the Discord. One of the channel moderators, Aqua, hit me up, let me know that IGN just dropped this video. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning they put this thing out. It is an exclusive hands-on preview with Spider-Man. One of their journalists got to play Spider-Man for 2 hours, and he did a video breaking down the whole experience. He talked about the story, his combat, his traversal, and we get gameplay of all of it. This gameplay was not captured by him. It was captured by Crystal Dynamics, but it pretty much tells us everything we need to know about the Spider-Man story and the combat, everything. So I'm just gonna let the video play and then I'll talk about it at the end.
Finally, on November 30th, Spider-Man is swinging his way into Marvel's Avengers. If you're playing on PlayStation, that is. I recently got the chance to spend 2 hours hands-on with Crystal Dynamics' latest addition to the roster and see everything the web-slinger has to offer. I came away looking forward to using his abilities more, but a little worried about what it is I'll actually be doing with them.
Uh-oh.
A quick note here before we get going that all the footage you're seeing here has been provided by the developers and not captured by us, so may not illustrate exactly what I'm going to be describing here. Peter Parker's introduction to Avengers is slightly different to previous DLC characters. Called a hero event instead of an operation, Spidey doesn't have any of his own story missions, but instead feels more akin to a character joining a hero shooter roster. As with every other Avenger, Spider-Man comes complete with his own unique moveset and slots right into the frantic action. With a combat style largely centered on quick evades, perfect dodges and quick-fire melee attacks, he plays somewhat similar to a more nimble Black Panther. While a lot of his strikes are your standard punches and kicks, every now and then a more Spidey-like contextual animation will trigger, which feels entirely in keeping with the character. As with any of the Avengers, he also has 3 heroic abilities. Web Bomb causes area of effect damage and is naturally useful for crowd control, but also inflicts the new webbed status effect onto enemies. Once that status effect bar is full, a webbed enemy becomes incapacitated and much easier to take down. The Spider Drone is a patrolling AI companion that fires webs at any foe that wanders into its radius. You can choose whether to instruct it to roam a specific area of the fight, or set it to follow mode, offering some welcome flexibility on the battlefield. Lastly is Spider-Man's ultimate ability, the Wrecking Ball, effectively a giant ball of webs that smashes down onto the ground to damage anyone near it. It works in a similar fashion to Thor's Bifrost ability. Spider-Man feels great in combat, which is not entirely surprising. Hero design has never been Marvel's Avengers' problem. The same, sadly, can't quite be said for how it feels to play as Spider-Man outside of a fight though. In this preview build, I got to swing around the eastern seaboard region, which is the closest we're going to get to Peter's native Queens. A very high bar has been set by Insomniac when it comes to the fluid motion of Spidey, but even allowing some headroom, Avengers falls quite some distance short of it. Opting for the swing off of anything method, Spider-Man effectively swings from a glass ceiling in the air. In fairness to Crystal Dynamics, this is the only real option, with the majority of Avengers locations being rural such as deserts and snowy tundra. The developer also doesn't have the luxury of being able to design a whole city around the Spider-Man mechanics like Insomniac has. Despite this, some of the magic is there, especially for the first swing or two after each launch into the air. But that magic often swiftly and unceremoniously evaporates as Parker smacks his face into that aforementioned glass ceiling and all sense of momentum is lost. The lack of true swinging freedom is noticeable, and while maybe it's unfair to compare it with the Insomniac version, it's honestly questionable whether the swinging here feels any better than Spider-Man 2 did on the PlayStation 2. All illusions are broken once you attempt to swing moderately high into the air and hit that invisible barrier, something that also affects wall running, which just stops you ascending somewhere past the 15th story like an out-of-service elevator. Stay low and you can build up some decent momentum, but show much ambition and you'll be met with some pretty restrictive forces. Describing Spidey's arrival as a hero event instead of an operation is basically code for don't expect any story missions, and that's exactly what you're getting. Apart from a short cutscene introducing Spider-Man to the rest of the team, the rest of what I saw of Peter's plotline about a suspicious chemical company was told through audio files, mainly emails and text messages read aloud, obtained once certain objectives were completed. These objectives are all standard Avengers fare that long-term players will be familiar with, such as perform 25 power attacks or play any 2 missions. Apart from a harm room tutorial, there's no new mission content here. The lack of content is definitely frustrating, and those expecting a new set of Spider-Man story missions to play will be left disappointed. One thing that Spider-Man doesn't lack, however, is outfits. Crystal Dynamics' latest addition to their Marvel Skinematic universe comes with around 40 suits. There's every colour under the sun imaginable, as well as some fan favourites from the comics such as the Spider Noir suit. It's clear that a great deal of care has been taken in curating and designing these outfits, so it's a shame that the same attention doesn't seem to have been paid elsewhere regarding new missions or Spidey's Traversal. Spider-Man has been a long time coming to Marvel's Avengers, and while it does remain to be seen whether the wait has been worth it, for the moment his addition feels more like a promise fulfilled through gritted teeth rather than one delivered with a smile. For more Spider-Man in Avengers, why not check out the latest trailer, and for everything else,
So that's a lot to break down here. So I can definitely tell you off rip, people are going to be very disappointed with this update. So we'll start with the story itself. We knew that when they described it in the blog that it was going to be pretty bare bones in terms of, the actual story. It had a story, but they said, it's going to be some cutscenes, and they're going to have, audio. They're going to have like files or something to help tie it together. And then there are going to be specific missions for Spider-Man to do. That's going to be throughout the war tape. But based on what he's describing, it sounds like it's literally like an event, like the Red Room takeover or the Tachyon anomaly, except not like the Red Room takeover, because at least that got its own unique room. This sounds like you're literally just going, you get a cutscene, a brief cutscene, which looks like it's animated, looks like it's still animation, not CG, introducing him. You get the harm room tutorial that you get for every character, and then everything else are just objectives for you to complete, like not actual missions where you're doing all these things, but literally just like you're trying to do a mission chain on one of these other events that we had in the past, like do any 2 missions, do 25 takedowns or whatever. So that's actually a lot worse than I thought it was going to be, and I'm really struggling to see what took so long for them to get this out. If they weren't going to, they didn't develop a story. They didn't do. There are no new missions. There's no new biome. There's no enemies. Like, it's literally the exact. They're literally just making it an event and giving him objectives to do, like it's a challenge card, and just throwing in audio files and cut like that. So that's not great. But in terms of traversal, pretty much expected the sky swinging. I've been joking that just pretend he's swinging from Uncle Ben. It really was the only way they could make traversal even somewhat workable in this game, because you didn't want to have Spider-Man just running and hopping all over the place like everybody else. That would be a terrible look. So sky swing was the best option. Now, to be fair, it'll probably look worse if you're running through like the wasteland, but when you're running through the city, at least when he's near a building or something, he webs onto that. He also has a web zip that I saw at one point, which looks like it might drain intrinsic, but I'm not 100%. I'm not 100 on that. His heroics. So the web status, I did that was cool. Some people predicted that they might do a web status, so that's cool. But the heroics themselves, uh, don't look great. I mean, they don't look good at all. I mean, I like the web status that they did, but the look and it looks pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, especially his ultimate, the wrecking ball. He just picks up this ball, just creates this ball of web that looks like a big piece of cauliflower and slams it down. It has a small AoE, but any enemies that are hit with it are, webbed up, and it looks like there's going to be some kind of skill tree add-on that gives you increased damage. You see, it's 18 seconds. So if I had to guess, I would say that because the wrecking ball inflicts the web status on the enemies during the duration of the ultimate, which is 18 seconds, it looks like, you get increased damage against enemies that are afflicted with the web. But the look of it itself looks pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. Like, especially compared to Insomniac. Get used to it. People are going to be comparing this to Insomniac even more now. Like, Spider-Man's special ability, one of his special abilities in the Insomniac Spider-Man was a web blossom, where he lunges up in the air and spins around, shooting webs all over the place, and enemies are just completely webbed up. It looks really cool. This does not look great. So looks like the Assault Heroic and the Ultimate are both for webbing up enemies, and his support actually pretty much does the same. It sounds similar to Black Panther's Komoyo beads, which are those little balls that follow you around. And the Komoyos, you can have them either do damage and stun enemies, or heal yourself and your allies. And it sounds like Spider-Man with his spider drones, they're just following you around and inflicting more webs. So basically all of his abilities are designed to inflict this web status effect. So I'm curious what the web status effect is going to be classified. Is it going to be warm? Is it going to be cold? Assuming it works, hopefully it works like that, because if it is, then Spider-Man could be pretty good at dishing out the battery effect potentially. We got to see how effective he is and how it all works in the actual game. It's hard to tell because, again, this is a Crystal Dynamic developer that is capturing this footage, and they're clearly very bad at the game. But once we're geared up, it should be interesting, because Spider-Man does seem to have a lot of interesting ways to apply his web status, but it just doesn't look very cool. I mean, his moves, his combat looks okay. It looks like the intrinsic is going to be spider sense, because you can see it during the actual combat when he's doing it. The spider sense is like tingling around his head. So I'm guessing it's tied to his intrinsic, because when he shoots webs, they don't actually, I noticed that they weren't draining his intrinsic at all. So I think it might just be somehow related to dodging, I'm guessing. So I'm guessing like it'll be similar with Black Panther. Black Panther, his kit is built around the parry, whereas Spider-Man's is going to be built around the perfect dodge. And the spider sense is going to help you with that. Except in the case of Black Panther, his intrinsic meter is limited in how much it can fill. Spider-Man's looks like it can go all the way to the top with no problem. So curious to see how that actually works out in game. He also has 3 different kind of webs, which is what I predicted. I thought his webbing would not be tied to his intrinsic, and it would work similar to the ranged characters like Hawkeye or Black Widow, where, Black Widow, Hawkeye, they have She has 3 different types of guns. Hawkeye has 3 different types of arrows for his, standard use. So it looks like you see by the icon, you can switch between 3 different web types for Spider-Man. The IGN didn't dive into it, but I'm sure we'll probably learn about it on the 29th, which is going to be the big war table for Spider-Man, where they do a deep dive into his kit and everything. But I mean, we got most of most of what we were looking for from here. So I'm curious how much more Crystal Dynamics is going to break down, because this one is pretty thorough. We got all of his heroics. We got to see it in action. We got to learn about the Traversal. We got to learn about the story. That's pretty much it. I mean, IGN just did a 5-minute war table. So that's pretty much like all of it. So overall, I mean, it's great that Spider-Man's finally here, but I don't know. This might not might not be it. I was actually trying to hold it in because he said when he was talking about the skins, he said their skinematic universe, which is pretty hilarious. He even said it. They seem to put a lot of time and crafting into those skins, which, if you didn't know, will be marketplace only, even though the cosmetic rework is coming back and you're going to have shipments where you can get costumes for free. Spider-Man will not have any of his cosmetics included in with the shipment system or anything else. You got to give them from marketplace. They got to get that money. But he said that they seem to have spent a lot of time, putting together his skins and making sure they look good, not as much on everything else. So we'll have to see. I'm sure he described him as a more agile Black Panther. So I think in the hands of someone that actually knows what they're doing, Spider-Man is going to be pretty good, potentially really fun, but from what I'm seeing, might not be top tier. I have to lab them because just looking at the kit, melee is still bad in this game. So how good Spider-Man is really going to depend on how effective he is at doing the battery effect, because none of his heroics are good for burst damage, from what I could tell. If I had to guess, the way to play Spidey is going to be to pop that ultimate, web up the enemy, and hopefully, the web's status effect works like all the other status effects in the game. So then you just, I guess, use your normal range of attacks to web them up with an opposing status effect, and go to town like that. That's how I'm assuming it's going to work, because unless Spider-Man has a really good melee attack that can effectively do status like Thor or Hulk. Otherwise, looks like it's going to be range Spidey again. Another range character. that's going to be the move, which is disappointing. Hopefully they fix melee at some point. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this update. Once again, obviously I want to get it in my actual hands. Spider-Man comes out next week, so we don't have to wait too long. But based on what I'm seeing, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe. If you get me to 8,000 subs by the 30th when Spider-Man comes out, I'll be doing giveaways for some of those 40 Spider-Man skins. I'm going to be giving out gift cards throughout the day while I'm streaming. So if you want a shot at some free Spider-Man skins, definitely subscribe, share this video, get the word out there, get me to 8K subs, and I will hook you up. Thank you for watching. I'm Stock the Gamer, signing out.